Hello, we hear you perfectly.
Excellent. Do I look as old as usual?
Not really.
A little bit older.
Bill, since Biden won, you look great.
Hey, look at this. All right. I didn't know we were getting the big guy here for this. This is fun. I enjoy doing these. I was just talking to Brown University this morning, and then University of Texas this afternoon, and now I have Madrid. I'm like all over the world. I love Zoom. What's the latest in Spain?
The latest.
The latest of the day or of the month?
We are waiting for a potential lockdown here in Spain due to the figures we have in COVID. So
really? I don't know if you know, we no longer have a crazy man in the White House here. So we now actually believe in science again, and we're very hopeful. Things are heading in the right direction.
We are glad.
Hopefully.
Yeah, glad to hear this.
But here we're going on the opposite direction.
Why is that?
Every week we're getting more restrictions.
Yeah.
But the cases are skyrocketing. So
Bill, we are live as in our way of doing things informally. Everybody's listening to us. So but this is perfect. So
great. You see, I just got this little gift. See, a little elephant with something on the top from New Jersey. What is the official animal of Spain?
I wouldn't know.
I don't know. We have so many. So Bill, thanks a lot for being with us in this second webinar. Mm-hmm. I was not here in the first one. You were alone with Andres. So as you are saying, we changed the platform. So we're in beta all the time. So we change
constant evolution.
Yeah, always in beta. And hopefully this platform, that is a new startup that we are testing, you will love it. And thank you for everybody to assist. And Bill, I have a new sentence for you before I give you the stage and the voice. Look at this sentence. Believe me, this is a great sentence. Execution pays your salary. Innovation pays your pension.
I like that.
I knew you were going to love this.
Yeah, and that's so true, because if you work, you get enough to live. You get enough to live. That's execution. But if you want to make a bigger impact than just kind of treading water, you've really got to innovate. I love it. Execution pays your salary. Innovation pays your pension. I heard another great quote from one of my mentors, and we were talking about the situation, and he said, "Life is not a parade. Life is a merry-go-round." In other words, maybe it doesn't even need explanation, but we were talking about the importance of relationships and how, your reputation matters. And if you think life is just a transaction, and you're done, you're wrong. You're going to see these people again.
Yeah. So Bill, we will ask you to share your desktop just to check if
it works.
Yeah.
Try going on tools on the top and then share desktop.
Tools
and share desktop. A live test.
Whereas I have files, apps, chat, participants, playlists, notes, invite.
Probably you have more than me. Because,
I don't need to share any slides. I'm just going to talk and take questions, but I prepared some notes.
Okay. So.
Okay, if Bill, if you want to share your slides, if you have, you just need to raise your hand. On the top right, probably there is a little person with their hand raised. So click there, and we'll give you access to tools over there.
Okay. But okay, I'm gonna do it without slides, believe it or not, Andres.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
So I think that the topic of today's kind of chat here, can I start, Alberto?
Sure.
And I ask you guys to interject with questions because I want to make this as interactive as possible. Is to think about startup frameworks, startup principles. How do they apply to big companies? And I prefer to give concrete examples rather than abstract concepts. And so as I've been thinking about this since we talked about it, I was thinking about who's applied startup concepts in this new world, because what worked, it's interesting because when you look at case studies from 10 years ago now, I would tell you, I would look at those with a lot of skepticism because the world has really changed a lot. Even from 2 years ago, even from 12 months ago, there's been fundamental changes. And so as I've thought about this, I think, what are the companies in the past 12 months that have really done extremely well? And what can we learn from them? What can we learn from them? And we can also look at the companies that haven't done well, because we don't want to have winner's bias, and say, what did we learn from them? And we're going to look at this through an entrepreneurial lens and say, what is it from entrepreneurs do that these people did that really helped them survive? And so I'm going to focus on 3 companies that have done really, really well. The first one is a company called Zoom, which I think you know. They have done extraordinarily well. And it's not like Zoom had an incredibly differentiated product. There were lots of other people out there better funded than them, like Microsoft, and there were lots of video conference tools. How is it that Zoom really became this success story? The second one, everybody knows Zoom, right? The second one that I would talk about is Peloton. Do you have Peloton bikes in Spain? I don't believe they've hit there yet.
We don't have yet.
Do people know what Peloton is?
I don't think so. Andres and me, we know the company, but I'm not sure most of the people in Spain knows Peloton.
Okay, so maybe we should share. If you could just, if one of you could just pull up a Peloton kind of advertisement to show what it is, or just even the website. Peloton is, so the founder of it, very entrepreneurial, and he looked at, he was looking around for opportunities. He had actually, he had tried his hand at entrepreneurship. He had gone to Harvard Business School. He had worked as an engineer in a Mars Corporation. A lot of different experiences. And one of the most formative ones is he went up against Amazon in the book business at the beginning. And he became convinced that, he built up strong muscles by the adversity, because you don't want to go up against Amazon in their core business of books, because they were not going to lose that. But he learned a tremendous amount in that situation. And he said, I'm going to apply that and create a great company. And so he looked around for problems. And
okay, Peloton, let's go.
We are launching
50
Peloton
rides.
just for
Great.
people to see the
Max in Berlin. Los geht's! Gebt alles, was ihr habt. 3, 2, 1.
You smashed it.
Peloton, dein ultimatives Live-Cardio-Training zu Hause.
So Peloton, so John Foley, the founder of Peloton, he has 4 other founders. You know, he's looking for this problem. He realizes, you know, he has kids. He wants to, you know, fitness is a big thing, and people want to stay fit, and they don't necessarily lead, you know, the lifestyles that make fitness easy for them. So spinning classes have become very big, and he goes to spinning classes and he enjoys them. But as he's looking at it, he says, "This is crazy. You know, I have to sign up like a week in advance for something in a certain time slot. Then I have to come all the way across, and you can't have a lot of people because it's physically limited by the room that the instructor is in." And he said, "This doesn't make any sense. What we're going to do is we're going to create a company to do spinning classes when you want them, where you want them, you know, and, you know, you can do them with people that you want to do it with. So you could do all the social networking you want." So what does he do? He takes a spinning bike, as you just saw, puts a tablet on the front of it, builds a content creation to teach classes, to run classes through his studio in New York City, and beam it out to people. They buy the bike for $2,000. They sign up for a subscription business of $40. $40 per month, and you get this wonderful experience of being able to walk down to your basement or wherever in your house and get on and take a spin class whenever you want, with anyone, any instructor you want, with other people that you choose to do it, and in your house. So it's basically saying the fitness club model, where you go to a club and do it, is not the only model. Let's decentralize that. Let's put this in people's houses. But he's not the only one, but he's the leader in it. And he does not, and Peloton sales have just gone through the roof. So Zoom, Peloton.
One fun fact, Bill, during quarantine, they died of success because they ran out of stocks for like 3 months. They had no bikes or devices or hardware to sell during that time. So the only revenue stream they had was their subscriptions.
Yeah, but they are shipping. They're just, the demand outstrips supply within COVID. So in COVID, they're doing extraordinarily well. By the way, people who get them swear by them. Joe Biden is trying to get one in the White House right now, and it's a big to-do because they don't want any network devices in the White House. So Zoom has been an extraordinary success. Peloton has been an extraordinary success. And the other company, the food company delivery in the United States called Grubhub, has been an extraordinary success if you look at these things. They have separated themselves from all the other kind of food delivery services, much as Peloton has from the quantitative exercise, distributed quantitative exercise, as has Zoom in the video conference. What do we learn from these? Well, you know, I had the really good fortune to talk to them, you know, about a month ago, and kind of really dive into this question as to what makes them successful. And what I want to share with you are 6 things that we see in entrepreneurs and that have made them successful, and we can talk about that as well. So the first thing is, entrepreneurs are always looking for what's changing. And the first vector the first point I'm going to make is not the only one, is how is technology changing the world? You always have to think, how is technology changing the world? And they all saw that technology was changing and it was going to enable new types of things, right? So changing technology. The second point is they, through excellent primary market research, ethnographic research, customer discovery, whatever you want to call it, constantly doing inquiry, doing A/B testing, observation, all those things, they really understand their customer, and they see the customer patterns of behavior changing. What are the trends in the technology? What are the trends in the computer and consumer behavior? And you have to be open to that, even though your products might be somewhat tied to what it had been in the past. And even though it seems like all these people were well positioned, there were other people who were better positioned. But what they did is they understood the vector of technology, where it was going. They understood the consumer behavior changing. Okay, so once you understand those, then you have to really build the capability of the organization aggressively for the future world, not just for today's world. All right, you have to invest in that, and this makes when you understand these two vectors, the question is not if home delivery was going to happen, if video conference would get bigger, if exercising in people's homes and not having to go to the gym would happen. The question becomes when, and you have to build up your capability before that happens. And all of these people built up their capability, but didn't build it up so high that they were way out over their skis. And as Andreas said, they didn't know that COVID was happening. None of these firms were betting that COVID would happen. They were going to be successful whether COVID happened or not. But when COVID happened, they were very, very well positioned because they understood these changes that were happening and the real underlying problem. They weren't kind of just obsessed on the sales numbers. They were obsessed by what were the underlying drivers from a technology and a consumer behavior, and were those things going to continue? So they weren't just looking at sales, although I'm going to talk to you, they were looking at sales, but they were understanding the underlying drivers. And the fourth thing is, they had not anticipated COVID happening, but as soon as COVID happened, it's very interesting to hear how these companies immediately sensed an opportunity as opposed to adversity. They jumped at this and they said, we are now in a window of opportunity. And we talk about this in disciplined entrepreneurship in step 13A is it's not just when you sell something, it's not just who you sell it to and how you sell it to them. It's when you sell it to them. And sometimes there will be these events that will make it much easier to sell your product. These are called windows of opportunity. So if I'm selling cybersecurity software and there just has been a major security breach of a consumer database, that is a window of opportunity. And I have to have the capability, and then I have to recognize it and then get out there very, very quickly to man that. And all of these companies realized the window of opportunity before their competitors, and they started moving resources into it with great enthusiasm because they knew that this was their time. The last thing is that, you know, you see this move fast. The clock speed was incredibly important. All of these companies had to make very rapid changes when they saw it to stay ahead. And I don't know how much you know about Zoom, but Zoom got off to a good start, but then they had these problems with security and China ownership and where's the data. And they had to iterate extraordinarily fast to keep their momentum going. And their organizations were built to do that. And for those of you who know, we talk about how important clock speed is in a startup environment. It's not how much invention you have. It's not how much commercialization you have. It's how rapidly you can iterate between the two things. You know, as Thomas Edison said, how many times can I iterate on an idea within 24 hours? And all three of these companies realized that they did not know the answers. They did not know the answers, but they needed to make a hypothesis, test that hypothesis as quickly as they could, and then adapt that hypothesis and test the new hypotheses. So the competition was not in, you know, coming up with a new product that would take a long time. It was more in how do we iterate very, very rapidly. In In peacetime, they talk about, the priority of things is strategy, people, execution. But in a crisis, in wartime, these flip. The priority is, execution, people, strategy. So you don't know what the answer is, and you have to continually iterate on it. And this feeds into the last point. As Mark Randolph said in his book, Mark Randolph is a co-founder of Netflix, and he says in his book, That Will Never Work. Basically, whatever idea you have is not correct. The only way it will become correct is if you iterate on it and you use data in the process. In God we trust, everybody else brings data. So nobody knows anything. You kind of have to assume that all people have are hypotheses, even yourself, and then you have to test them. And everything is hypothesis, and you're testing it on a continual basis. So all of these companies were incredibly data-driven. It was so interesting to talk to their top leaders and to hear just how data-driven they were, to see it. Yes, as I mentioned, they did look at sales, but that wasn't the only thing. They were looking at net promoter scores. They're looking at engagement. They're looking at leading indicators before you get to revenue. And this is what we do, in startups. And these companies, by the way, are not small companies. Zoom, Peloton, and Grubhub. They're not Fortune 500 companies yet, but they will be. But they were not brand new startups de novo where they could just do this. They had to inject these 6 principles within a bigger organization and really prioritize them to be at the top. So let me just summarize those again, and then we'll go to the Q&A. The first one is understanding technological trends. Sounds obvious, but you really have to have a focus on it. What is the technology enabling that wasn't possible before? Where is that vector leading that will make it, a month from now, 2 months from now, something possible? And that could have to do with bringing costs down. The second thing is, how are consumer patterns of behavior changing? It used to be that people would only go to clubs, for instance, with Peloton, but now they had seen that people were readily adopting working out in their homes and seeing enormous engagement levels. So they immediately knew, they didn't immediately, they had to run the hypothesis and see it. They knew that this represented a trend that they felt had nothing but upside, because today, very few people have it in their house. Everyone's going to a gym. But that won't always be the case because of all the benefits we talked about. If you could get the Wi-Fi in the house, if you could get good equipment at a reasonable price there, if you could get the infrastructure to support it, and you get the network effects of other people being on it. So understand technology, understand consumer, build an organization with the capability to realize that future opportunity, not just the one today. And then recognize very rapidly when you're in a window of opportunity to really push this, accelerate it. And then when you're in it, you don't push all your chips into the middle and go, we're all in. You push it enough to run experiments, and you iterate very, very rapidly, clock speed. And within that, you're always data driven. These are 6 principles that we emphasize with our startups, but they're very, very relevant for any organization today, because the speed of change, the amount of adversity you face will make it essential that you have these qualities. And this is what we talk about, making you anti-fragile. Okay, Alberto. Andreas, I turn it back to you. Questions?
Sure. We have some questions coming from the audience, and other questions that are some doubts that I want, or some thoughts that I want to share with you.
Good.
First thing first. So let's go for some of the questions in the chat. Jose Minguez is saying that in the end of the day, these companies you are naming are big. What do you think makes a big company take decisions fast? What is the things that they need to put in place to take decisions fast? This clock speed you are mentioning.
Yeah. What what made these decisions fast was leadership from the top. There was a tone at the top to say, we must move quickly. It's okay to fail. We don't know. I don't know the answers. The best innovation comes from bottoms up as opposed to top down. What comes from top down is the ability to create a culture, to create an organization to make these decisions. But what happened to make it rapid, to make it very fast, was the CEO and the CFO of the company were in lockstep. And these are usually the two people who slow things down. They were in lockstep that we were in a window of opportunity that they had identified through their business plan, and that we need to move fast. If we don't win now, if Zoom had lost their, Zoom was the whole security thing. Was that a big thing in Spain, in Europe?
Yes, it was all over the news here.
Yeah, this is a big deal. Zoom got off to this great start. They focused on education, and then that happened. And they knew at the very top that they could not, they couldn't overreact to this, but they could not underreact to it either. They needed to come up with a rapid response to it. And they knew that speed was of the essence. And so they were very communicative about it. So in answer to your question, Alberto, is first of all, the tone at the top. And the tone at the top comes from the CEO and the CFO. But then they set it for kind of the other executive team, that this was a priority. They designed the organization bottoms up to be able to move fast in certain areas. And once they realized they were in a window of opportunity, they gave this group and leeway to move quickly, clock speed. They measured them on it. They wanted to know how many experiments they did. Where's the data for the decisions? And they not only allowed them, they pushed them to do it. And that was really important to it. And this is the leadership of tomorrow. We really need entrepreneurial leaders, not kind of, the old financial management types.
Yeah, I completely agree. We need a chief entrepreneurial officer in a company, Yeah. And to me, there is another interesting point we were discussing, Andres and me, just before this meeting with a client here at the Q. And I was thinking that most of the big companies, I don't know if they take decisions fast or slowly, I don't know, but I think that the level of risk they assume, they are always looking, they are looking for the point of parity, instead of the point of difference. And probably these companies, they are leveraging on the point of difference, what makes them really different in the market. While big companies probably, they make a bet on something that is the point of parity because it's sustainable, this kind of things. What do you think?
Yeah, I think this is a really important point. Large companies often migrate to focusing on their competitors and investing a tremendous amount of effort in their competitors and financial performance of it. These companies were much, much more focused on the customer. What is the customer's engagement? What is their, how many trips are they doing? They were much more focused on not the competitors. They were focused on the customers leading them to the right answer. And they were less focused on what are our sales now as opposed to are we meeting this emerging trend? So what you say is a large companies tend to start focusing on lagging indicators as opposed to leading indicators. And competitors is something that I'm not saying you shouldn't think about it, but what drives you should be the customer, not the competitor. And we say this, by the way, exactly the same thing with startups. That, when you start, think about where your competitive positioning is, but then focus on your customer and build things back from that. Don't focus on the competitors and try to fill a space once you've gotten started. Focus on the customers.
So, yesterday I discovered a very simple matrix that a friend of mine, he explained to me, Bill. On the vertical axis, you have execution, you have a strategy, okay? And it's so simple. You don't have a strategy or you have a strategy. And
Yeah.
in the horizontal axis, you have execution. You don't know how to execute, and you have very powerful execution. And
Yeah.
I like very much the quadrant where you have a strategy. Most big corporations, they do have a strategy,
Yeah.
but they have a lack of execution. Probably they make very quick decisions, but they don't know how to execute them. So this quadrant, they call it yesterday PowerPoint dreams, you know?
PowerPoint what?
PowerPoint dreams.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think this is that what people, what entrepreneurs have always understand, you know, my friend, my student, Freddie Karras, who started Okta, he used to have a sign on his wall, which I think is a little over the top. He'd say, you know, we have a strategy. It's called sales. And that's a little over the top. And there's another saying in startups, there are only, you know, 3 types of people in startups. There's people who sell stuff, there's people who make stuff, and there's people who are leaving. Those are the only 3 types of people. That's not true. You need to have a general strategy, but you have to understand that strategy is not worth anything. It's only worth the PowerPoints it's on, unless you've tested it in battle and the execution allows you to iterate and make it better, because there's never been a business plan that has worked from the beginning. That's the book I was mentioning with Mark Randolph. It's called That Will Never Work. And he talks about how his original premise for Netflix was wrong. You know, even though he could make an argument that, oh, it was good, it was in the right direction. It was in the right direction, but there were so many things that you didn't know and that needed to be worked out. And the only way you worked those things out was through execution. Fast execution, data-driven execution, as I mentioned before.
So actually, I have a derivative from your phrase, which is from the CEO of Southwest Airlines in the United States, which is we have a strategy, and it's called doing things.
Yes, exactly. See, I think that's not, you know, I like what I say about Freddie and that. I think those are good to kind of get people who are spend too much time on the PowerPoints that Alberto's talking about.
Yeah.
But I think you have to have you know, successful companies have teams that have a common vision, shared values. That means they trust each other and they hold each other accountable. Without accountability, you're not going to have a successful company. And then they have complementary skills. But the strategy is that shared vision, but it's not that specific, right? And it's not tested until you do it. But I love that one. Herb Keller, you know, we have a strategy, we do things around here.
We have a question in the chat. Elisea is asking, by the way, Elisea, she used to work here at the Cube, and she is willing to join your MIT Innovation Leadership Bootcamp, right, Elisea? So you have here Bill. So
fantastic
opportunity to make a smart question. So she's saying that in the entertainment and restaurant sector, we are killing spontaneous plans by having to make reservations. Are we going to plan when to have fun? You are a Elisea.
Congratulations, Elisea.
Congrats, Elisea. You will
be
first.
Yeah, this is a really interesting question, because in COVID-19, we have learned so much. So we're having our strategy session just like you did for our center. We're now thinking of what's the Trust Center 3.0, you know, leveraging what the Cube has done to do Cube 3.0. And I think now is a perfect time to do that, because of all the things that we learned over COVID. Which of those things are we going to take going forward? How are we going to change our patterns of behavior? How did our customers change their patterns of behavior? How should we change our delivery to those new patterns of behavior? What did we learn about, you know, digital delivery? And so the restaurant industry, you know, the restaurant industry is going to come back. The question is, it's not going to be exactly the same, and it shouldn't be, because consumer behavior patterns have changed. Technology has changed. You know, And so people are going to want stuff, but everything can't be intentional. This is the thing we've learned is, we are more productive than we were before at our center at MIT teaching entrepreneurship. But what's missing that we didn't have, that we had before that we don't have now? So many things are much, much more efficient because they're more intentional. When we have meetings, we don't waste time traveling, But what we miss are these serendipitous collisions where people didn't have an intentional thing. They kind of met each other. And I know there's things like roulette, there's things they try to simulate it. But that's, to me, the precious element of restaurants and some of these more physical locations is how do those serendipitous collisions, those richness of exchange, we need to treasure those more. We need to think how valuable those are. We need to use those, more expensive ways, those more precious ways for the more important things. And that's in business and that's in our personal lives as well. And this is what we don't understand how this is going to work out. There's still a long ways to go in this COVID thing. But to me, it's very clear that, if this thing lasted for 30 days, we could snap back and not change. But we're changing our muscles as human beings. We're changing our muscles as social beings as to how we're going to do that. We're changing our muscles as people of commerce. And I think that the restaurant business and other businesses will go back and they will think about how are they going to utilize those serendipitous collisions and how valuable they are. I was just talking to someone, top executive at a big US corporation, and they said, we are getting out of our leases. We're no longer going to have cubes in our office. We are now just going to have common spaces and areas like you see at an airport. And so the place is being built to encourage those serendipitous collisions when you go to the office. And if you don't have that and you want to work on your own, why is it efficient to go to a cube in an office? Why don't you just you work at home or find someplace else? And this is how people are starting to rethink it. Do we know that's going to work or not? We don't know. But those are the types of things that people should be thinking about now and experimenting with. And I think that's going to fundamentally affect all businesses, not just the restaurant business.
I think, Bill, that now that you are working on the Martin Trust Center 3.0, you should consider this interesting concept on the third place, because now we are spending so much time at home, and we don't have our second place. It's the office. That probably the Martin Trust Center can be the third place where you can join people, have at least some chats, physical chats or physical chats between digital and physical, So
yep.
That's an idea.
Yeah, I think, Alberto, you and I have talked about this. At the Trust Center, we design neighborhoods. Like, we were one of the first ones at MIT to design neighborhoods within our space. We have a quiet space, a place where you want to meet people, a place to eat, even within our small center. So you could have different personalities in the same space, right? And we do this in our house as well. But how does that translate to business, and how do we make it fluid to go between those? Because I think that's one of the things, your insights with the Cube is, you don't just act like the same person all day. You want to have this kind of ability as you go through the day to think differently, to think and work differently.
Here we have another question from a big member of the Cube, Nicolas Imeneret. So he's saying, one of the key is to engage the frontline people, the people who are facing the customers, to love execution and their data. What would your recommendations to engage teams falling in love with their data?
Yeah, there's Mark Twain. Thank you for the question. What company is Nicholas with?
From Schweppes.
Schweppes, yeah. In the United States, there was a famous person named Mark Twain. He said, "They're lies, damn lies, and statistics." And you could use that with data. So you can use data to kind of say what you want. You have to put that data in a qualitative aspect. So what I would say, people not falling in love with their data is you have to get them to do the qualitative research, the primary ethnographic research to understand that they are really addressing the correct problem. And this goes back to hypothesis testing. So data is quantitative, and the biggest problem that startups make is that they jump right to surveys. And as we point out, surveys, if you haven't done the qualitative analysis up front to come up with the right hypotheses to test, your quantitative analysis is not only wrong, is not only not useful, it's misleading, and it's wrong, and it can be damaging. So anyone who wants to have data, you know, we go through, before we say this is the data, what's the question we're answering? Are we addressing the right question, the right hypotheses? So we're not data obsessed. And don't get me wrong, we love data, but there's lies, damn lies, and statistics. And you can, if you have data that supports the wrong hypotheses to be tested, then it's not only not useful, it's damaging to your organization.
Yeah, I have another interesting point here, talking about startups and corporations, because, for example, in the case of Apple is one of the largest companies worldwide, and they have one principle. I like it very much because we do it in startups. That is, leaders should know the details of their organization 3 levels down. You know, detail is the secret sauce of execution, and it's the secret sauce at the end of the day of survival. And most of these big companies, they have so many levels that they cannot go 3 levels down into the detail. What do you think, Bill?
Yeah, well, I'm starting to get nervous because I couldn't go 3 levels down in my business. I could go to the head of development, then I could go 1 layer down from there, but I could not go to the 3rd level where the guy was coding it. Yeah. I think
go to the basement here at the Cube, you know.
Yeah, I mean, we always talk about this, and you all know this, but you know, in entrepreneurship, generalities don't win. Specificity wins, and we always, you know, you see it in the book. We're always pursuing the holy grail of specificity. You know, concepts might be nice, but only if what's true in general is true in specific. So give us the specific things that we need to know, the specific backups to this. And that's why making things as specific as possible is important. The devil's in the details. So I think that leaders should be able to understand the key problems in it. And sometimes, I'm going to push back a little bit against this. When I think of running my business, I couldn't know all the details. I had to know what the critical things were, and I made it important to be able to kind of, even if I couldn't do their job, I would try to do their job so I could empathize with them. Because at the end of the day, as a leader, if you're a leader, you're a good leader, you're a servant leader. You know, the people that you're leading are your customers. And if you want to understand your customer, then you should do their job. Even if you don't do it as well as them, you should do it to understand what are the pains, what are the bottlenecks, what's the reward of it, you know, and what scares the hell out of you when you're doing it. So understanding all the data and all those things, I don't think that's as necessary as having an empathy to understand what the big picture is that's going on.
We have another question from Gaurav. He's saying, as a prospective entrepreneur, if I don't have data analytic skills, does it mean I should do first those data analytic courses for data-driven interactions, or count on someone and trust him on his analytical skills? And I think you already answered with your previous sentence.
Yeah, and let me amplify a little bit more on that, Alberto. Is like, I was not a good programmer, but I understood enough programming to be able to manage programmers with credibility. I think you should take a data course, but not have to get an A+ in it. When I took a programming course at MIT, I took it pass fail. And there's some ego of you that says I could be the best programmer, but that's not my job. I'm the business person. But I did take that course to know enough about it. And I think you should take a course or whatever it is, exposure, so you're not afraid of data analysis and you're comfortable asking the right questions of it. And that's my advice. And by the way, if you're not married already, I've married a data analyst too. They're going to make a lot of money in the future.
Wise decisions.
Yeah. There are not so many. So
it's interesting. Some places like in Mexico, there's a lot of data analysts. If and there are certain places where they just are a lot of them, and they're in high demand right now. They don't train them in Spain?
we do.
They do.
Oh, you do? Yeah. I mean, just to put this in perspective, there will be more data produced in 2021 than the entire history of mankind, going back to hieroglyphics, the cavemen, and there will be more data collected and recorded in 2021 than there will be the entire history of mankind, through our phones, computers, through our cars, through our IoT devices and everything. And guess what? It will be the same in 2022. That includes 2021. It will just, the amount of data that's collected is just going up exponentially. So understanding and how to work with data and utilize that is the new gold. I'm on this again, this company that's doing very, very well, and I really love it because they're restless. They keep pushing forward. They look at trends, and they have a new program, a new initiative with some of their top executives called Goldfinger, that looks at how do we take advantage of the data that we have in our organization and we could acquire to appropriately protect that, from compromising privacy, to use that as a competitive advantage, and then to get more value out of it going forward in the future. And I applaud them, and I think this is what almost all companies should do. How are you using data? Just like, 40 years ago, you would have had someone say, how are we going to use computers to improve our business? Companies today should be looking at how are we going to use data? How are we going to build up the capability inside of it? I have some former students that actually run a data analysis, machine learning groups for big corporations, and that. So it goes back to kind of those 6 points I was talking about at the beginning, and these see this tying together. Technology training. What's happening? We at MIT see data going through the roof. But what's that trend? More and more data, of course. And what's the technology trend? Machine learning, AI, data analytics, computers that can handle this, quantum computing. It's going to make the ability to massage that data. And then we said, going back to the sixth one, data driven, how do you use that data to test the hypotheses that you continue to iterate on very rapidly? So data is a big part of the future. That's why, as I said, that's why we at MIT are creating the first time a new college of computing. I think the last time we did that was like 30 years ago. Anything similar.
That here in what we are noticing here at the Cube is that everybody is thinking now on new businesses, new digital opportunities. At the end, when a time when everything is shaken up, new attitudes and new behaviors emerge. And I read that 57% of the Fortune 500 were born in a crisis. So,
yeah,
those examples you are giving to us, we will see many more companies appearing and really destroying in the market all competitors, I'm sure.
Yep. But that's Antoinette Shore at MIT has shown that too. It's not only that, the people who start companies in a down cycle build up the muscles to fight through hard times, and they also build up the muscles to be very efficient about how they use capital. So they really built up these muscles of connecting directly to customers and getting their whole team focused on that, and all the stuff we've talked about, iterating rapidly, because they have to in a crisis. Otherwise, but sometimes, as Warren Buffett said, the high tide can hide people who aren't wearing pants, But when a low tide, there's no place to hide. You've really got to do all the things right to survive. And when we do, and then it turns around, no one is better positioned. And the other thing is you've also gotten good people and you've retained them through a hard time. They're going to be much more loyal to you than someone who's going up in a boom time who hires people and then they're going to jump out to the next big opportunity. So it's not an accident at all.
We are just finishing. Bill, you don't know the level of energy and inspiration that we get when we talk to you, and I'm sure I am receiving some WhatsApps. Even if Mark Zuckerberg is reading all our WhatsApps, I don't care. But people are saying that it's very inspiring. So thank you a lot for your time. I bet that we can make in the future some of these talks on this sentence on execution pays, your salary, innovation pays, your person. What do you think?
I love it. That could be kind of naming the next round of this series. But thank you so much for having me. And stay safe, everybody. And I look forward to seeing you in Madrid or Boston in person sometime soon, so we can be more have those serendipitous collisions and have to be less intentional. But in the meantime, let's get stuff done and let's keep innovating. We need to build up that pension.
Thank you very much, Bill. Hope to see you soon. Thank you for the invitation.
Thanks, everybody.
And thank you everyone for joining.
Take care. Bye-bye, Bill.